So, this video might be a bit more contentious, right? But I think the reason why British actors are so much better is because of the multiple reasons. But first, we'll talk about like the type of roles they take, especially for like these like older actors of like in the 50s and up. I feel like they take certain type of roles that are more diverse and they're more kind of widespread. When you look at like all these like older actors like that were there in like the 90s and 80s and 70s, whatever, for like the American ones versus the British ones or overseas ones, it feels like their reach or like their openness is so much more than all these American actors. And I do love my American actors. I'm biased, and a lot of them are from Boston. Because I'm from there, so I'm biased. But yeah, I just think that they're more. I think overseas actors is more open. I think the type of roles they take are more diverse. Really, because I think they try to push themselves into what type of roles they can do and mold into themselves. And I mean, look at Christian Bale. That's a perfect example. And I also like the reason. Also Jeremy Irons, and he pops in my head because he's one of the actors I think that kind of changed my perspective, or I really I don't want to say that, but added to my perspective, I guess, to why I think British actors are so good. Which is, Bill was talking back in the day, and he's saying that he didn't want to be celebrated as an actor because when he's younger, his growing up actors are kind of seen as kind of like I guess kind of like vagabonds, just kind of on the street, kind of wanderers, or this kind of like Brummy Charles Bukowski kind of thing. And I think that speaks to that so well because there were just these seen as these kind of like I wouldn't say hippies, but they were just like these vagabonds, these people that were just like out there being wild and loose and whatever. And you don't really see that from American actors, or not really, or it's a different kind of way. It's a different type of like. It feels more like kind of like poetry. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's not the same thing as like here, because here it's like a kind of. Drugs and stuff like that, but like I'm not saying that it's just different. And like for there, it felt like they were doing it for the art. And I think here they're doing it for fun. I think they're doing it for art and for the life and to express self-expression. And I think that's a different like thing. I mean, I'm kind of like, making it sound a lot better than what it is. I'm sure some people over there were like that too as well. But I think a lot of overseas actors kind of have this like artistic kind of openness to them that that was there in many different ways that makes them such better actors. On top of that, the type of roles that they take, I think a lot of actors over here, especially like I really mean for like the older generation, like the 50s and up crowd, they kind of like had these very strict roles. We look at a lot of like certain like action star heroes. They had certain they were very simplistic roles. Look at like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look at the Rock. I don't know. Like look at all these actors. And there's not even like, or even look at like Denzel Washington. It's a very like simplistic roles that he takes, not that complicated. These actors, even the ones that are actors, like I said, like a Denzel, they're not that good of actors. They're not that open. And also like touches on another thing I want to talk about, which is like the emotional aspect. From my understanding, there's like really like two different ways of like acting. There is you can use your emotions of your past. Like if you have a sad scene, you can use things that happened to you that was sad in the past to be able to draw these emotions and kind of use that for that scene. So if you have a scene where like your mom is dying, you can think about something in the past that was really sad, like maybe I don't know, a girlfriend broke up with you, or your boyfriend, whatever, or you lost a friend. And use those emotions to use that scene in the scene where your mom dies, or or the other school of thought is that you could really immerse yourself in the character and how they would feel into like how their mother dying. So you don't have you're not drawing on anything inside of your past, but you're putting it into the scene right there to really draw these emotions of sadness and also how the character would act. Now, those two schools of thoughts have one thing in common, which is you have to have a certain amount of emotional intelligence and also openness in terms of with yourself and be able to draw those emotions and how you would feel and be able to connect with someone else, have a certain level of like sympathy, and also being able to do that in front of other people. Because remember, if you're an actor, you're doing this in front of multiple different people. I don't feel like American actors have that, especially like that older crowd. I don't think they have that at all. I don't think they have that at all. They don't have that whatsoever. And I don't think they really have that. I think that's why they just don't make as good actors. When I watch all these older actors, older men especially, I just don't think that they're as good because of that reason. And I remember, I think it was like I don't want to butcher her name. I think it was like Kirsten Bell or I forget her name. It was a girl from like from Twilight. You know what I mean? The Twilight girl, whatever. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen that video where she's talking about like how acting such a feminine thing because you're so being open. You're acting. You're doing this. It's not a very macho thing. I think even the girl from Stranger Things talked about this too. She was talking about like how a lot of these older actors, they had to make their acting more rough or tough or whatever because it wasn't this like tough thing, you know what I mean? And they come from their parents came from a generation of so that even older generation, their parents are like these World War II vets, whatever, that raised them, and then you have to make it seem more macho than what it actually is to appease them. And I think that really to have this amount of emotional openness, you kind of have to embody some of these characteristics that I don't think necessarily they're feminine, but they can seem more feminine, and you have to do that to become a great actor. And I just think that like not to say that there weren't like certain like macho stereotypes in overseas areas, but I think you might have had more areas where it would have been more okay to be more feminine, whatever, or to be a kind of actor and go into the arts. And I don't think that we had that here, at least for that generation. I think it's changing now. I think you have a lot of young actors and a lot of young men that are coming up and they're being better actors. But I just think the past, they wasn't that good. I think that's also why a lot of these younger actors a lot of these older actors are just weren't that good. Because I look at them, I'm like, dude, I don't think you were like really in an area where like you really could do that. I think that maybe some of that's why like I feel like their older roles as they're older are a bit more open and better because they can after years of shutting these like things down, they can be better actors. But I think for the most part, that's why a lot of their older roles are dog crap. They're not good at all. They're horrible. And I just think that's why British actors are so much better. They have these spaces, and even the few actors that are good, that are of that older generation of like 50 plus, like God, what's his name? He's God, I need to search up his name. Good gosh, but he's a guy from Black Phone. God, Black Phone. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. I love him so much. Got it. Ethan Hawke. Well, Hawke, like for example, so good because he talked about how like he was an actor since a young age, and I think he said his mom took him and whatever, and he did like ballet in New York. So he had this very like emotionally open environment from a very young age, allowed him to grow. And we look at like these great actors or even great comedians or whatever. A lot of times they've had sometimes not all of them, but sometimes they've had these areas where they were able to develop and foster these things from a young age. So they didn't have to necessarily like build all these like weird ideas of what it means to be like a man and then have to tear these things down. Instead, they were able just from the beginning to be open and expressive and whatnot. And that's why I think, as corny as it is, a lot of people don't respect it. I think that's why school and education training is so good. I think that's why it's so important. A lot of people poo on these things. I don't. They're very important. You should do it because it will allow you to be in the space and practice be open, to practice to cry and get angry in a way that's very vulnerable, that we don't get to a lot of times. And there's still parts of the country in this world that you're not able to do that. So I just want to say that, I know we kind of went off topic because this whole video was, why British men actors are so good, but I think it touches on so many other things that it's not just like, like that country, it's so many other things. But, that's kind of all I have to say for today. I hope you enjoyed this video and, sub and whatever in my IG, Twitter, and follow whatever. Yeah.